So what I thought to do today is, having shown you aspects of my collection with the Commodore 64 stuff, I thought I'd sort of move on to the next generation after that, the next step up, which would have been to use a disc-based system. So this is really for all you into your old retro games. This is going to be hopefully of interest to you, and for those of you who want to know what all the fuss was about back then and what we used to work with, and some of these things I'm about to show you, you're not going to believe what was actually involved to get a game running. This is what we had to cope back into the late 80s and early 90s. So today I'm going to take you through my Commodore Amiga collection. Now this will cover the 500, the 600 and the 1200, of which I've got a 500 and a 1200 knocking around somewhere at home. Not a massive collection. I have some, shall we say, other games in a couple of boxes which back in the day would have got me into a lot of trouble. I think you know what I'm talking about. For those of you who are unaware of that, let's just say they weren't the original versions of the games. Now, yeah, so if I try and take you through some of these and try and bring you some background information and also some hopefully memories of some of the games I have played, because some of these again I do own and I haven't actually got around to playing yet, so we shall see how we get on. So let's start with Platoon. This was a very well known film back in the 1987 I think it was, and as you can see this is the inside of it. I'll just take that out. You can see great here, there's absolutely one disc in there for all that. It does actually say on the front there should have been an original Motown recording of Tracks of My Tears by Smokey Robinson. However, that doesn't appear to be in here. What does appear to be in here are no instructions, but the original poster. I mean, that's brilliant. I don't think that's ever been unfolded since it went in there. Isn't that brilliant? A real piece of old-time memorabilia there. So yeah, one disc, no instruction manual. From Ocean Software, who did an awful lot of film tie-ins back in the day. Of course, it was a famous thing back then to produce a computer game based on a well-known film. Up next now, this is Monkey Island 2, LeChuck's Revenge. This would have set you back, and I don't think you can see that there, a whopping £37.99 from Boots the optician. Well, the chemist, aren't they? They're sort of an optician. Now, when I sort of say things as such as you don't believe what we had to do, first of all, the disc was protected. You see that there? So what you had to do is when the game started up, you'd have to it would I think, if I remember, some sort of coding system here, a number of flash up, and you'd have to move the wheel round to correspond with the two images, and then it would give you a date, and then you type that in and it would let you play the game. If you didn't get it right, you wouldn't be able to get in, and you have to keep going back and do it all and over again. Now bear in mind that if you wanted to get the game to work, you'd need that number of discs. So absolutely essential was having a second drive. With the Amiga you had the computer and a drive was built in. If you therefore wanted to play games like this where you weren't constantly taking disc out and put the disc in again, you'd need a second drive. So it's absolutely essential. But there are a grand total of 11 discs here. 11 discs. So you put disc 1 in, and you get to a certain point and say please put disc 2 in, and then you just carry on going around from there. And of course it's absolutely essential to make sure that you made a copy as well, so technically you were working off 12 discs altogether. And for a 12 disc game, that's the size of the manual, which is basically a pamphlet. So that's what you have to do. You have to play games back then. That's what you had to do. You had to have that number of. Now, not all games came like that, as we saw Platoon came on one disc, but for a game this size, you needed 12 discs to play, and they wouldn't all stand on top of each other. You got to back down. And all because you wanted to play a game which is called Monkey Island, which has got a monkey in it. I think there's an island in it as well, but yeah. And of course you needed back in the day as well a minimum, right, of 1 megabyte of memory. Now most Amiga 500 only came with 512. You had to buy extra memory, which I think was about 25 quid at the time, and then there was a port underneath the Amiga and you put the thing in there and then you were able to play 1 megabyte games. It was absolutely essential. It became the bare minimum at one point. There we go, and this is Wing Commander, the 3D space combat simulator, which came out on so many different Amiga formats. So you can see 500, 600, 1200, 2000, 3000 and 4000, and again it requires 1 meg of RAM and 1.5 meg of RAM as well, and it supports faster machines than that. Not as many discs as you might think, just 3 for this one. There's the manual. It sort of comes in a... Oh, it's like a guide to all the different ships and things you can have in there. I've never actually played this, so you can't tell, but that sort of goes in there. There's one of these lovely registration cards, which I'd love to see. Oh, and wow, look at all this. Oh, look, proper blueprints of all the spaceships and things. All absolutely in here and complete. Oh, one's got a coffee stain on it as well. That's the manual. No, one of them has got a coffee stain on it. And there's also a reference guide as well. Didn't show you the back. There's the back. It was quite a popular PC game, if I remember, and then as a sort of the game got more and more onwards, they got more and more expansive. PC got into them, and I think Mark Hamill, when we got into full motion video, Mark Hamill sort of got involved in that as well, playing one of the roles. Anyway, this is Epic. Now this was a very well publicised game at the time. It was meant to be beyond anything we'd seen on Amiga before, and it had meant to have outlandishly fantastic graphics, and it was going to be basically the next biggest thing in sort of space exploration. And when it came out, it had about a gameplay time of 2 hours for like 30 quid. So it didn't go down particularly well, and I'm pretty sure this needed, I mean, look at the size of the manual. It's a book. It's a book. It is a book, and it's all pilot controls. So there's a list of all the controls for pilots, different languages. I say, yeah. Well, I mean, not half this book. Yeah, probably about a third of that book is actually English instructions. Nice little ocean polybag with the 3 discs inside. I'm pretty sure this needed a dongle to play it, which you plugged into the back of the Amiga, and it would recognise that as part of the, we talked about the Monkey Island 2, like a copy protection thing. That doesn't appear to be in here, which means I might not be able to play that. One game that does have a dongle, which is, this is the sort of thing I'm on about. See there, we plug that into the back of the Amiga, and it recognises, because that's the connection on it, it goes into one of the extensions, the joystick ports, the extension ports. I can't remember, it's been a while since I played this one. And you plug that in there, and it recognises that is there, and therefore you are able to play the game. The interesting one about the one they use for Epic, and I got this from another video, which was, if you know Ashens, he did a thing about this. One of his he did a speech at the Norwich University, I think it was this year or last year. They sort of mentioned this, about the fact that this was created especially to stop people copying games, and they managed to crack this the week before it came out. This is Robocop 3, which would have set you back £25.99 back in the day. This one was more famous about the fact it had giant graphics to go with it. That's a really nice looking manual, actually. Look at that. Really nice looking manual. This had like vector graphics, which was quite revolutionary for the time. On the Amiga 3D graphics, sort of polygon type thing. It came on 3 discs. You've got there. I'll just show you the back of that, which has very little in the way of shots, but only down there. There was actually a Robocop 3 film. Was there a Robocop 3 film? I think there was, and this was based around it. You can't quite see those there, but that was the idea. That was meant to be completely blowing you away for your Amiga user back in 1993, 4, something like that. Oh yeah, Robocop 3. No, Robocop 1991. But yeah, there's no hologram sticker inside that, unfortunately. Incredibly slow movie. You needed a horrendously powerful Amiga computer to run that. This is a platformer called Premiere from Core Design, and you can see some rather joyous cartoon graphics on there. I actually picked this up a car boot sale with another game which I'll show you shortly. 50p I think this cost me back in the day. Completely random car boot sale. Where was this car boot sale now? Can't remember. Down south somewhere, I think. Again, 3 of these floppy disks there with it. And a giant box with very little in there, but another poster. One of these, aren't we? That's the poster which sort of combined, which was really interesting. So you could stick. There we go. So you can stick the poster on the wall, and then how do I play the game? Those are all the instructions at the back. That's really clever, isn't it? Really clever. But not nice poster anyway. I don't remember much about this one. I don't recall anything about that game whatsoever. It's this 8-way scrolling platform adventure played over 6 levels, which are represented in different movie sets. I see there's a Wild West one and a gangster one, and probably a horror one thrown in there as well, and something to do with monsters and things. So it seems to have got quite reasonably good reviews. Now, one of my favourite games of all time is Jimmy White's Whirlwind Snooker, which, up to the point where snooker games are basically viewed top down of a view of the table with all the balls on there, this decided to go in a completely different direction and actually put you behind, there's the man himself, actually put you on the table, so you could actually sort of get right down with the angles and line everything up properly, and it was absolutely brilliant. 1 disc on that one. I've got to show you this because this will make you cry. This is the manual, which it's snooker. There's a shot there of Jimmy White, and the programmer on the right hand side there is that's Jimmy White. That's Archie McLean, who programmed the item. Went on to produce a product called Archie McLean's Pool, which was equally as good. Yeah, I mean, it's got every single language known to man in there. Klingon, I think, possibly is in there as well. And also, if you were really, really bored of actually just playing the game, there's actually history and the rules of snooker, and also the Jimmy White story in there as well. Again, in all different languages. So, but it actually gives you a full rundown of the rules of snooker. So you can't possibly claim that the computer was completely wrong. And it came out in 1991. After Jimmy White lost 2 straight World Championship finals. And there's also one of these which tells you if you wanted to play with the keys, or you can use the mouse button. And that's the Amiga version, and that's the Atari ST one just on the other side. But yeah, I mean, it's a great. I mean, you don't have to be a fan of snooker to play. It's full of lovely little touches as well. Sometimes when you're looking at the balls, little faces appear on them. That's the sound effect when you sort of chalk the cue. It's really funny as well. I used to love just sort of sitting there pressing that button for minutes on end of the sound was absolutely fantastic. Did come actually with a set of did come with some chalk, but that's probably since been eaten by somebody. But I love that game. It was so much fun, and you didn't have to be into snooker to enjoy it. It was Really, really good. This is Dino Dini's Goal, which was the follow-up to Kick-Off 2 after Dino Dini went and worked elsewhere. And 2 discs, not as good. An instruction manual, again, is quite thick. But actually, that is all about football. That is actually the manual to the game, not just in different languages. That is the manual. It had bigger graphics, better graphics. But I don't think it was as good as Kick-Off 2. It was a bit disappointing. It felt a bit sort of shallow, not quite as playable. It was fun, but I just don't think it had the pick up and play factor that Kick-Off 2 did, or indeed Kick-Off 1. This is L'Arme Fatale, otherwise known as Lethal Weapon, which was a platform game. You can see there the diminutive figure of Joe Pesci lurking behind Danny Glover. There he is in the middle there. So this was probably around about the time that Lethal Weapon 3 came out. This was actually a very well respected platform game at the time. It came on 1 disc with 1 manual, and again that slightly embossed hologrammatic glossy effect on the front there, in about 7 or 8 different languages. It sort of tried to follow the path of Hudson Hawk, if you remember that, which was a terrible film but not a bad platformer. You can see some screenshots down there. It's quite enjoyable to play, but you've played a platform game like that, you've played them all really. Now, this is an interesting one. This is Skid Marks. Not what you think it is, it's about cars. And as you can see, it's very much in the style of RC Pro-Am, which most of you may remember being on the NES back in the day. You can also design your own tracks. It also had an online mode as well, which was absolutely completely different for the day. And it also had a slidey out box as well. So it came with 3 discs and an AGA car disc, which was only for the 1200 and 4000 users, and a manual which looks like it's been printed by somebody themselves, but it hasn't. Again, it got, I think it's very well regarded as being a very playable game. I've never actually put it in, to be honest with you. Box is a bit manked up. That's probably another reason I've done it. And it would have set you about $25.99 back in the day. A lot of money. Now, when I mentioned that I've got Premiere at Car Boots, I also managed to pick up Championship Manager 93. This is the second game in the series. The first game was simply called Championship Manager, and was all right, but got generally sort of slated off because it was far too statistics driven for some people. For other people who like statistics, like myself, flyer there, and other bits and pieces. Oh yeah, and this, I'll show you this. Well, this is absolutely essential to part of. This is actually a flyer, okay. And it says here, due to the amazing complexity of Championship Manager 93, which has over 2,000 players who all have their own club records, your computer needs some serious thinking time to set up. Now bear in mind, if you're running a standard Amiga 500, this could be any time between sort of half an hour and 3 weeks. This happens firstly if you select New Game, or you can select Quick Start to bypass this and see the manual for that. And also when the season is over, the game is calculating data for the start of the next season. This can take up to 1.5 hours, depending on the type of computer you are using. The section that takes the longest time is player data. Just relax, leave your computer alone for a while, as all the actually set up for you attempt to win the league. Yeah, most people are taking. Can you imagine they're sitting there waiting an hour and a half for a game to just create the data? I mean, I know when you nowadays you buy a brand new game and you have to install it in a PS4 game. I presume it's the same on Xbox One, because I haven't got one of those, but I've got a PS4. When I first put FIFA into that, it took forever to start. I thought, well, it's just downloading the stuff to the hard drive. This would just create the game, it wasn't downloading anything. And of course, what you needed beyond this was a disc of your own to save the game, so you can go back and play it. Purely stat driven, again, with a bit more of an animated match window. This was, I didn't get this one. I got the Championship Manager 93-94 edition, I think it was. I got the one after this one, so I never actually had this one before. This would be, although I think I've played it. This is what starts you off on. This is what started me on every Championship Manager game after this one, until about, I don't know, I went through, I've sort of got 97, 98 up there. I think I went all the way through until 2002, 2003. I think when it switched to Championship Manager 5 and I played a demo of that and it was atrocious, and that's when I sort of stopped playing Championship Manager, and then I moved to Football Manager for a couple of editions, and then I sort of gave up on it really. Football Manager 2005 was probably the last one I played properly in depth, and actually kept going back to probably for at least 10 years afterwards. And I may go back to it again, I don't know. Leander. The size of that box. This is from Psygnosis, who, it's the wrong way around, there's the back of it. I want to show you that now there. It's about a little knight character, I think. Yes, it is. Yeah. It was sort of done in the style of sort of anime, I think it was. How many discs have we got in here? Oh, 3 discs. 3 discs and a wallet. And again, looks like print your own instruction book. And that's rather nice in there, isn't it? That's the Psygnosis logo. And some safety pins. Why are there safety pins? I might want to wash my hands thoroughly after this. That's the problem when you buy stuff off people that you're not quite sure how well they've looked after it. This has been looked after, it's just got a load of safety pins stuck in the bottom of the box. I have no idea why. But one thing you can always say, the covers are fantastic on these games, aren't they? So those are the giant boxes. I have some smaller boxes. And some smaller boxes still. So we have here Winning 5, which is a compilation. You always judge a compilation by, you know, are there any good games in there? No. Iron Lord, Sir Fred, Twin World, Puffy's Saga, which is the only one I recognise. That's because I played it on the Commodore 64. It's like a Gauntlet clone, not a particularly good one. And Night Hunter. And this is from Ubisoft. If you watch any of my other videos about pickups and things and Wii games, there's an awful lot of Ubisoft games in my collection there. The world's smallest manual for 5 games. Puffy's Saga 1 disc, Fred 1 disc, Twin World 1 disc, Iron Lord 2 discs, and Night Hunter 1 disc. Surprisingly, Iron Lord comes on 2 different style discs. I'm not quite sure why that is either. There we go. It looks like I've ever owned these beforehand. Looks like it's in the name of a Darren Pegler. He's with his name across those. Thank you, Darren. Carve Up, which also came from Core Design, who did Premiere earlier. Again, it's a platformer based around a car, which I think got reasonable reviews at the time. Quite cartoony, actually. They did quite a lot of. One thing you do find about platformers is they do tend to follow that path very, very closely. And I've got 1 disc and a huge giant fold-out manual, which I'm sure is going to show me on the back, being Core Design, that there's going to be another poster. You get free gifts of these back in the day. You can put that on your wall and not know how to play the game. Great looking game, shame about the poster and the instructions. And the poster's quite good. Corporation. This is Core Design. Now, I've got absolutely no memory of this game whatsoever. I've never played this before. These boxes are that days. 1 manual, 1 disc. But I seem to remember it was very well thought of and well regarded at the time. It looks like it's a space trading dungeon master RPG, Dungeons and Dragons sort of thing. Your role as Zodiac agent is to infiltrate the 16th floor headquarters of the corporation and locate and obtain an embryo from the building's fetal laboratory. Oh, sounds fascinating. Corporation gives the player complete 360-degree rotation with the ability to walk, run, jump and even inch your way through a complete three-dimensional environment. Fantastic. Exclusive featurette: return your photograph and the enclosed status card to receive a personalised data disc featuring your own digitised photograph. Well, that is in there. So I presume whoever had that had it. No, that'd be interesting, wouldn't it? R-Type 2, which I seem to remember wasn't quite as good as R-Type 1. We come on, these folded sliding out box, isn't it? Sliding out box. Oh, sounds like there's more drawing pins in here. No, just the one disc. Sort of bad. Oh, poster as well. Obviously a thing back in the day to give everybody posters and the instructions on the back that saved money, I'm guessing. Yeah, R-Type 1 I love. R-Type 3 I've also got on the PlayStation 2, but I've never actually played this one. Oh, anyway. Yeah, astonishingly tough shoot 'em up series, R-Type. If you enjoy a good blast, it's a good thing to go. Kick Off 2, yes, game of the year. One of my favourite games ever. So much playability out of this, and I know some people love it and some people don't. There's a manual, and there's the one disc for it. Some people hated it because the ball wouldn't stick to your feet, so it's far more difficult to control the ball and the player and actually both of them at the same time. To be honest with you, I don't think really that makes any difference. Makes any difference to me whatsoever. You can or you can't. I find it more easy to play with a joystick than I do with a joypad. I've got to be honest with you. I grew up playing with a joystick. I tried to play with a joypad, and it didn't quite get the same effect from it. That's why I couldn't quite get the grips with Super Kick-Off on the Mega Drive. But one of my all-time favourite games. Me and my mate Andy, years and years ago, now lives in Australia. We spent many hours playing that game back and forth. It was great fun, great times. Back to the Future Part 3, notorious for actually being a worse game than Back to the Future Part 2. And I got to see a lot of people. Saw a lot of people play Back to the Future Part 2 because one of the Amiga packs that came out for Christmas the one year, to this version, sort of included, I think, Days of Thunder, Back to the Future Part 2 and something else, I can't remember. So they all had Back to the Future Part 2, and I think they all generally agreed that and Days of Thunder were a right load of crap. Plenty of stuff on YouTube about this game, and whichever format you're playing, whether it's the Mega Drive version or this version, it's equally as bad. It's got an incredibly tough first stage, and if you get to see the second, third and fourth stages, they don't get any better. Not a good one, another waste of a licence there. Line of Fire, which is famous for being not Operation Wolf, and therefore most people have forgotten about it. This also came out on the 8-bits and was actually done differently. As you can see there, probably from the second screenshot down, it was sort of done in the 3D perspective. But the 8-bits decided to do something a little different and turn it around and sort of make it into a up and down scroller. Because obviously back in the day it was more and more difficult to recreate that faithfully. And we talked about arcade conversions in the Commodore 64 stuff about, you know, how could you possibly put Outrun onto a Commodore 64 or Chase HQ onto a Commodore 64? You couldn't. No instructions of this one, but I got one of these wonderful little fold out of all the upcoming games. It'd be interesting to see what we've got on here. I can tell you if any of these are any good. Strider 2, no. UN Squadron, incredibly hard. I remember playing that on the Super Nintendo with my mates. Incredibly hard. Sporting Gold, which was a compilation of Summer Games, Winter Games, Summer Games 2, which I think I had. That was right. Vaccine, I don't know anything about. E-Swap, which was much better on the Mega Drive. Operation Harrier, no. Snow Strike, no. There's got some compilations here. Platinum, which featured Strider, Black Tiger, Ghouls and Ghosts and Forgotten Worlds. If you had an 8-bit version you get Lead Storm as well. I don't think I had that. I don't remember that compilation. Sega Master Mix, which had, well, that's a real collection. Strange ones: Turbo Outrun, Crackdown, Super Wonder Boy, Dynamite Ducks, and I gave you Enduro Racer for free because they didn't like you. I can't imagine giving anybody. A game called Mean Streets. I had that, which was like a futuristic sort of Blade Runner type thing, which I didn't get very far with. And I lent it to a mate of mine, and he copied it. It never worked properly again. And finally, Hard Driving 2, which was a complete waste of a disc. Hard Driving was a Polygon 3D arcade machine, which was absolutely well, no, it wasn't absolutely fantastic. It looked fantastic. What it actually was a bog standard driving game, and it was nothing special to it at all. And when it got converted to the home systems, it was one of those things where they should just never have bothered. They just couldn't recreate what it was trying to do. One manual and a disc. And even the 16-bit version, which could handle something like that, weren't very good, and it got piss poor reviews elsewhere. And then they decided to make a sequel out of it, which was equally as bad. Some things you just never do; just leave them alone and just leave it. North and South. They want the thin boxes here, so these are sort of like budget releases, I'm guessing, and re-releases of North and South, which is quite a fun game to play. Just the one disc and no instructions. Based on a Belgian comic book called, was it called Le Bleu or something, wasn't it? I can't remember off the top of my head. The Blue Coats, I think it translates as to roughly anyway. And it's sort of set in the American Civil War, and it's all done in a very sort of cartoon style. It's actually pretty good fun. I don't think it's more now regarded as a better game than it was probably back in the day. Some people liked it, most people didn't. Oh, that's the wrong way around, isn't it? Turrican. Not Turrican 2, but Turrican. It is the wrong way around. Oh dear me. Oh, I'm not performing surgery on that just now. Just the one disc for that one. And this is the budget re-release of it. It got alright to start with, but Turrican 2 is where the benchmark was set, really. Wasn't a bad shoot 'em up, but I think a lot of people sort of preferred the second one. I mean, it did get, got 97% on the Commodore 64, but Turrican 2, I think, raised the bar much higher. This is Panzer Kickboxing, which has nothing to do with tanks. That's a fight that you're never going to win in it. 2 discs, again, no instructions. You're never going to win a kickboxing fight against a tank, are you? Nice looking game, that one. Played a bit of it. It's all right. It's kickboxing at the end of the day, which is a bit of a strange license to have, but it got some very good reviews. This is a budget game from Codemasters, which is Captain Dynamo, which has some very cartoony graphics on the back. Not outstanding, I've got to be honest with you. One disc and an instruction pamphlet. Not particularly great, that one. You mentioned in the Commodore 64 videos, Codemasters putting instantly addictive. Not entirely sure that's correct. Amiga Power seemed to like it. Top scrolling fun. This could be one of the best yet from Codemasters. That could be the best bit of the review. That actually could be a pre-review. We don't know. I've not played it. I couldn't tell you. Toyota Celica GT Rally from Gremlin Graphics, which is their budget label, which is GBH. This was actually a game I loved playing, and then I went back and played it, and it's not as good as I seem to think it was. There was that, and I think there was Lombard RAC Rally, 2 sort of games that I was very sort of into. And it gets, I love this, it gets round the back by not putting many screenshots, by putting screenshots of 2 games on there which aren't actually associated with it. The one you're looking for is in the middle. It sort of preceded Colin McRae's Rally by quite some years, and honestly, not bad at all. Footballer of the Year 2, which isn't as good as Footballer of the Year 1. which I played a lot of times on the Commodore 64. There is just one disc in there. I'm not going to get it out. I've done all the other ones. There we go. One disc, Footballer of the Year 2. Not as good as Footballer of the Year, which was very, very simple. If you never played Footballer of the Year, you basically had a it was supposed to be Footballer of the Year. You put yourself in as a player, and then the idea was you played a match, you went along and you saw each game from behind the player, and the idea was trying to score as many goals. You'd have 2 or 3 chances per game and put as many in the back of the net you could do, and the idea at the end of the season was to become Footballer of the Year. Simple. This is Assassin, the Collector's Special Edition. Why is it a special edition? No idea. I didn't play this one. I played plenty of Assassin games over the years, and I'm never going to get a chance to play it because inside is Final Fight. Now I know that's good because I've got that Assassin disc up there somewhere. So there's a bonus. I have Final Fight and no box, and I have Assassin but no disc. Now that is up there somewhere. I know I've seen that somewhere before because I thought that's strange. Well, I've got a copy of that and a copy of this. This also goes once again goes to show that you should actually sort of check these things within a few years of buying them. Well, Final Fight. That's meant to be a terrible conversion. I like Final Fight. Final Fight 1 on the Game Boy Advance. If you like Final Fight, is a really good one to pick up to play. That's what Assassin looks like. If I can find the disc. That's why it's the special edition, because it's a completely different game. I don't have Buyer's Remorse though. I'm not that. There we go. Smash TV. I'm just checking to make sure it is the right one in there. This is great fun. Great fun. Completely outlandish, cartoony, over the top violence. Giant manual. 8-way controlling shoot 'em up. Basically, if you've seen The Running Man, which is Arnold Schwarzenegger film, it's sort of like that. It's a violent game show where you sort of get put into a different screen, and you go around shooting all the enemies, and they sort of drop prizes and money and things like that. It's completely off the wall. Yeah, absolute quality, that one. Yeah, love that game. Hudson Hawk, which was based on a terrible Bruce Willis film. Which one I hear you say? It's Hudson Hawk. They're all awful. Now, some Bruce Willis films are pretty good, but this was one of the great flops of all time in Hollywood. And the fact that it actually was a pretty good game. Manual. It was a platformer, which you can probably see from the back there. But actually, it was a far better game than it was a film, which goes to show that not all games on films are rubbish. Not all rubbish. No, some of them are very good. But by the time we got to that point there, as we saw with Lethal Weapon as well, it was a case of simply churning out the same sort of format over and over again. They moved on because Hit Squad, it was Ocean game anyway, Ocean Software game. They moved on from doing say Batman the movie, which is sort of set in 5 different, a platform game, a driving game, a puzzle game, a flying driving strike game, and then a platform game to finish off. The Untouchables was a very sort of similar thing. Robocop was sort of 5 different levels. Then they moved on from that to do everything with like generic platforms. So the Addams Family, Lethal Weapon, Hudson Hawk, and probably some others I can't think of at the moment. But that was actually not a bad one. And the last one I'm going to show you is Scooby and Scrappy-Doo, which is nothing to do with the Elite game of the mid-80s. This is high-tech software, and it looks like it's a platformer based around Scrappy-Doo, so that's going straight in the bin. Oh dear me. Ugh. Well, I mean, that is disappointing. I mean, I didn't even do a printed disc, it just got a label. So you saving money. High tech. They did. I had a couple of their games. I had Rough and Ready in Space, which wasn't very good, and I had Yogi's Treasure Hunt, which was brilliant. I love that game. I actually finished that. I was thrilled to finish it. Wasn't quite as good as I thought it was, but yeah, I did. But that one there, yeah, I don't know. generic platform. Yeah, so that, apart from 2 giant boxes of games of, shall we say, dubious nature, is it. I had loads back in the day. It pained me because I had Amiga was my first computer, and I had loads of games back in the day, and it pains me to think what happened to those. And they all got dumped, basically. I'm not proud of that. But then again, back in the day, I sort of moved on, and then I think by the time my dad sort of mentioned this, I've still got it here. I said, I've moved on to the Mega Drive now. And then went from a Mega Drive to a PC, and then from a PC to a PlayStation, and then moved on from there, really. PlayStation 1 to a GameCube, and then to an Xbox, and then to a PS3, and then started collecting all this stuff. So yeah, but I had loads of games back in the day, loads of originals as well, and I've got actually none of those there I owned back in the day. It's really weird. I played some of them, obviously, because there were ways and means back in the day without having to pay for them, but yeah, none of those there I've shown you that I actually owned before properly. So they're all new games to me, but I think there's so many different ones that I had over the years. Batman, the movie, New Zealand Story, F-18 Interceptor, Treasure Island, Dizzy, Rainbow Islands, Rodland. Just trying to think of some off the top of my head here. TV Sports Football, that was before pre-Madden football, American football game. Loads of terrible football games, I'm pretty sure of it. Sensible Soccer, that was one I had when that first came out. I actually went up and bought it within a week of it coming out. I never used to do that. So yeah, they're long gone, but I've got other ones here to sort of replace it with. And like I said, I've got 2 different Amigas to play them on, which is fantastic. And yeah, so I hope that's given you an insight into where where we started back in the day. And that's why people of my generation sort of enthuse over these sort of things. I hope you've enjoyed that. I've quite enjoyed that, especially finding Final Fight in the Assassin box. That's a bit of a bonus as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, some interesting stuff there. Hope you've enjoyed it. That's the main thing anyway. And if you've switched off, then obviously you haven't. If you would love to see what else is on the channel, by all means, feel free to do so. Lots of pick-up videos, a few gameplay videos. Also check out the Commodore 64 stuff. That's always interesting, and I'd really like new games to sort of go back and see what we used to operate on and what the quality of the software was back then. There are some gameplay videos up from a few years ago in there as well. You can do the usual. You can like, you can subscribe, you can ask me a question, you can leave a comment. Fantastic. I'd love to hear from you, because this makes it all worthwhile. And if you don't comment and subscribe and things like that, then I'm going to keep going anyway. So, right, yeah, thank you very much. That's brilliant. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And we'll be putting another video up soon. So see you then. Bye for now.